Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Off the Dome podcast. It is season 3, episode 17. It feels like it's been forever since I've recorded an episode, and that's because it has been forever. Like it really has been too long because I had spring break essentially. So I left school and I went to Toronto for a week, and I went to the Lakers and Raptors game, the one where Russell Westbrook hit the clutch three to send it to overtime with like zero point 0.4 seconds left, and LeBron hit a ridiculous bank shot. I was at that game, okay? I saw Drake with I breathed the same air as Drake, bro. Definitely one of the best moments of my life, and for obvious reasons. But shit, let's get back into it. And the other thing too, I was thinking, man, it's been a while since I recorded a podcast. It really has been. It's been damn near, well, I guess it's been 3 weeks because I had spring break, and then last week I just didn't do it. I don't know what happened. I just didn't do it. But like really, it's only been 6 leg days since the last time I recorded a podcast, which for me it's not that bad. It's okay. We can live with that. It's all right. The only thing that matters is that I'm here now. That's it. We got not too big of an agenda in front of us. Right now, the NBA season's almost over. My San Antonio Spurs only have 4 games left, and I'd love to get into this. It's going to be one of the first topics, maybe the first topic, the Western Conference playing situation right now with the Spurs, the Lakers, the Pelicans. In my eyes, the Pelicans they're in. The Pelicans are going to make the play-in game. They have 4 games left, and their competition is nothing compared to the Spurs and Lakers competition going down the stretch here, because San Antonio and Los Angeles have some tough games coming up in the last 4 games of the season. I want to talk about the playing game, and then I want to get into the ranking. I want to rank my top 4 contenders from each conference, because especially with I'm seeing injuries starting to creep in. Maybe not very, very noticeable injuries, but there are certain injuries, I'll get into them, that have kind of changed my opinion on a few teams going into the playoffs, changed how good I think they'll do in the playoffs. Some of them are obviously very notable. Okay, some of them are like, yeah, your team's done. But other ones are kind of like, oh, this guy being injured might just turn you from a contender to, or a team that I could see in the finals, to a team that might get bounced in the second round. Yeah, let's run it. Let's do it. Okay, I want to start West playing game. Okay, for those of you guys who don't know, I am a fan of the San Antonio Spurs. I'm a Spurs fan. I have been since I started watching basketball over 10 years now, over 10 years ago. Of course, back then, I hopped on the bandwagon because they were, well, good as shit, and they had the best French player in the league, which was Tony Parker at the time. And so I just cheered for Tony Parker, and it was just a convenient coincidence that the team he played on was cracked at the time, the San Antonio Spurs. And, you know, once you pick a team at the age of 12, when you're emotionally immature, I'm not saying I am now, but when you are, quite frankly, an idiot at the age of 12, of course I'm going to ride with that team for the rest of my life, which, fuck it, we're here. You know, I've got nothing else to say. That's it. I'm a Spurs fan for life. And part of being a Spurs fan is dealing with the ups and downs. There's been a lot of ups for Spurs fans over the years. There's really been, well, we've won more championships than have missed the playoffs. Okay, that's enough. So we're spoiled. Spurs have been spoiled for a long ass time. Now it seemed, especially last year, we didn't make the playoffs, and we got rid of DeRozan, and then this year it's kind of like, oh shit, we are going to be terrible. And we were terrible for a large part of the year, but we've come on recently, and I honestly didn't think we had a shot to make the play-in game until really San Antonio. They took the 10 seed for a moment in time before they lost their next game. But with that being said, if you look at the standings right now, the San Antonio Spurs, after Sunday's win against Portland and Lakers' loss against the Nuggets, San Antonio currently sits at a record of 33-45, 2 games above the Lakers, 31-47. The New Orleans Pelicans, by the way, and it's, as a Spurs fan, it's comforting to know that we are closer to the Pelicans than the Lakers are to us. Because as a Spurs fan, I'm always kind of ready for the Spurs to let me down. You know, I am. I'm shitting myself every time. Like, they were down 10 at halftime against Portland today. Portland, honestly, I could honestly talk about Portland Trailblazers and how shitty of an organization and how bad their team is and how irrelevant the entire franchise has been for the history of basketball, other than Bill Walton, Damian Lillard, and like the smidge of time we thought Brandon Roy would be good. Or his story is terribly sad, of course, injuries and shit like that. But other than that, the Portland Trailblazers are probably the worst franchise in NBA history. I mean, they really are. They're up there with Sacramento as just being flat out terrible. I mean, Vancouver Grizzlies type shit. Okay, this team is Blazers are trash. They really are. And I was watching the Spurs game against the Blazers today. I couldn't name anybody on the team. I just knew Drew Eubanks because he used to be a member of the Spurs and he was playing for the Blazers. But Portland had a bunch of random guys. And who the fuck? Who are you? I feel bad for Damian Lillard. He's got to get out of there. He has to. There's no way Lillard stays at all. He can't do it to himself, man. To the NBA, fucking like he'll lose my respect if he stays in Portland. He genuinely will. And I love loyal players, but it gets to a point where it's like, why are you staying in Portland? What kind of benefits? What special benefits are you getting from staying in Portland? Like, really, genuinely, there's nothing. It's a shitty city and a shitty state. Like, it's really, no offense if you live in Portland or Oregon, just kind of keeping it a buck with you. Of course, I've never been there, but I'm just saying Portland is trash. The team is trash. With all that being said, the Spurs beat them back-to-back games. The Lakers lost to Denver. They lost to the Pelicans. Oh, that Pelicans. I love seeing the Pelicans beat the Lakers. That was great fun. But let's take a look at the Spurs, or both the teams, San Antonio and Los Angeles right now. I'm looking at it, and I'm thinking between the Spurs and the Lakers, combined, they have 8 games left. Spurs have 4 games left. The Lakers have 4 games left. I could genuinely see both teams losing all their remaining games. The Lakers do play against OKC, which is the one game where I'm like, okay, Lakers will win. I think it's safe to say Lakers will beat the Thunder. But I'm looking at San Antonio's schedule right now, and it's really the last thing, the last hope for the Lakers is how good San Antonio's remaining 4 games are this season. San Antonio will play against the Denver Nuggets on the 5th, which is Monday, which is Tuesday. So the Spurs play the Nuggets. They visit the Nuggets. They visit the Timberwolves. They host the Warriors, and their last game is in Dallas. That is a tough schedule. Those are 4 teams that are in the playoffs, that are solidified playoff teams. Minnesota, the play-in games kind of fucked them over this year because the top 7 teams in the Western Conference are so much better than the 3 teams that are going to be in the play-in, the 3 other teams that'll be in the play-in games. Like, Minnesota should not have to play an extra game there. I think the NBA's got to tweak some shit up where if you're not within 5 games or whatever of the 7 seed, you shouldn't have to play in the play-in game. You really should. They're a playoff team, and if they don't make it off some bullshit, man, I really would feel bad for them. But again, it's the Timberwolves. Like, what else do you expect? It's kind of it's a franchise that's used to failing and used to losing. So, I'm sure the fans wouldn't be too surprised if that were to happen. Looking at the Lakers' schedule, though, the Lakers, they've got Phoenix, they've got Golden State, they've got OKC, and they've got the Denver Nuggets on the last game of the season. And the thing that I hate about the Lakers, because, again, I'm talking about Lakers and Spurs, because for me right now, it's the most intriguing matchup is, are the San Antonio Spurs going to knock out LeBron, Russell Westbrook, and Anthony Davis from playoff consideration, from play-in consideration? Will it happen? I would love to see that happen. And it's easy to look at the Lakers' schedule and be like, look, they've lost 6 games in a row. They have. They've been against good teams, though. They lost to Philadelphia. They lost to New Orleans twice. Okay, that's sure not a great team compared to the other teams they've lost to, but it's still, the Pelicans, and they barely lost to them the second time. They've lost. They 5-point loss to Philadelphia. They got blown out by Dallas. They lost to the Utah Jazz. They lost to the Nuggets and lost to the Pelicans twice. Okay, those aren't the shittiest teams in the league. Those are games that, if you look at the Lakers' schedule, you're thinking, okay, that's tough. You're not really expected to win those. But I hate the fact the Lakers, it always seems like, especially against a team like Golden State, the Lakers always play good against the Warriors. LeBron's going to pop off against the Warriors. He wasn't playing today against Denver. And against the Nuggets, I could see the Lakers winning that. I think Phoenix is the one game where Lakers will not win going down the stretch here, and I'll give the Lakers the OKC game. But I'm just saying, as a pessimistic San Antonio Spurs fan, the Spurs are not in the playoffs, in the play-in officially yet. It's not. I don't want to get ahead of myself. I really don't. Even though I would love to celebrate right now, because all I want is the Spurs to play in a meaningful basketball game in the postseason. Imagine, and fucking DeJounte Murray better not be hurt. If we do make it, if we do make it, we'll play the Pelicans. DeJounte Murray better be playing. He better fucking be playing. Yeah, I want to get into ranking the top 4 contenders from each conference. And it's tough because I call it the top 4 contenders. I don't think there are 4 contenders in my eyes. The way I judge a contender, when I say, okay, this team is a contender at this point in the season, is a team that can win the championship. I don't think there's 4 of those in each conference. I really don't. I want to go through it. We'll start in the Eastern Conference. And this is what I mean. I have a very strict, my what the fuck's it called? My standards. Sorry, my God. My standards for a contender are very high, much higher than most people's. Okay, which is why I say take everything with a grain of salt. Okay, for example, I don't think Miami's a contender. Because again, can I picture the Miami Heat winning an NBA championship? Do I think they have a chance? Or do I think that the Heat can win a championship this year? No. I do not think the Miami Heat can win a championship in 2022. I don't think it can happen. Boston, they got fucked with this Robin Williams, or what's his Williams, Grant? I don't know. The Williams guy. Williams, one of the best defenders in the NBA. That sucks that happened. That's a terrible timing for an injury. Okay, he might be back later in the playoffs, but he's out for quite a long time. Boston now is not a team that I can see winning an NBA championship this year. They're not. Okay, so those are two top teams. The top 2 teams are now in the Eastern Conference. I don't think they can win a championship. I do not. Next, we go to Milwaukee. Milwaukee's the first team in the East that I say, yes, they're a contender 100%. They are. They've lost 2 games in a row. They're 6-4 in the last 10. They're not playing great basketball. They lost to Memphis the other day, or like about a week ago, who didn't have Ja Morant. That's not a surprise, though. That's another segment I could get into. I could talk all day about how good the Memphis Grizzlies have been. No Ja Morant. The other day, they literally had arguably their 5 best players out, and their coach was ejected, and they beat the best team in the NBA. I mean, what the fuck? It was a bunch of no-name guys. It was a bunch of guys I never heard of just draining threes and doing reverse dunks. I was like, what am I watching right now? It's incredible. But the Milwaukee Bucks, they're not playing amazing basketball right now. They're not even at 50 wins yet. They might, if they do get 50, they'll be right there, just barely getting 50 wins. But they are a team that I can see winning an NBA championship in June because they have Giannis Antetokounmpo. They have Drew Holiday, they got Chris Middleton, they got Brook Lopez, and they just won it last year. Of course, I'll call Milwaukee a contender. 4th, the next team, the Philadelphia 76ers. I'm not ranking these, by the way, yet. I'm just going through the teams saying if I do think they can win or not. The Philadelphia 76ers, yes, contender in my eyes. For sure, 100%. When you've got Joel Embiid, who is, in a lot of people's eyes, the MVP, and I don't think he's the MVP for me in my eyes, but I could see why I wouldn't hate it. I mean, if he won the trophy, I wouldn't really care that much. It's not all right, sure, fair play. I'll give him his props. He's been going crazy this year. I was watching the game today, and there was a moment where he went down on his ankle weird, and he was lying down on the floor for a little bit, and I was kind of I wouldn't have been shocked if it turns out that was a season-ending injury, because it seems like Joel Embiid, he's been sturdy recently, man. Knock on wood. But the man hasn't been hurt in a long time. I feel like I hate to be the one that says it, but it seems like every year Joel Embiid gets hurt at some point and misses some crucial games, and it's why hasn't it happened yet? Maybe he's saving it for the worst possible time. I don't know. But Philadelphia's a contender for sure, and you got James Harden with it. You got a nice little supporting cast. The Brooklyn Nets are back in 10th right now, and it's weird to think that this team, I really do think, sure, they can win a championship. They can. The thing with the Nets is that they can win a championship this year. You'd be a fool to think that they're completely out of it. They're not. When you have Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, do not count that team out of especially the playoffs. The playoffs, those are 2 guys that have been to the finals time and time again, who have hit clutch shot time and time again, who have been in every possible situation. Guys that have lost series they should have won. Guys who've won series they probably should have lost. Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving have been in every possible playoff situation over the last 10 years. And they've made deep playoff run after deep playoff run. And we're sitting here where two guys who kind of, I almost would consider it cheating the game almost, are back in 10th in the East, deservingly so. But they're still a contender in my eyes. They're still a team that can win an NBA championship in the Eastern Conference. So if you want me to, if you want me to rank these teams, this is how I rank them. I think the number one contender in the Eastern Conference are the Milwaukee Bucks right now. The number two contender in the Eastern Conference are the Philadelphia 76ers. This is where it gets interesting. Because for three, I could go Miami, Boston, or Brooklyn. Brooklyn's back in 10th. But they have Kyrie and Kevin Durant. They have, like, it's as simple and as much of a cop-out as it is for me to say that. That's all I need to say. That's the reality. That's the reality of the situation. Brooklyn is my third favorite to come out of the Eastern Conference this season. Fourth, I'm gonna go with the Boston Celtics. No Williams. He's been hurt. I think, like, again, he might be coming back later on in the playoffs. But I trust Boston more than Miami. I do. And yeah, I know a lot of Miami Heat fans, for obvious reasons, think their team is, good enough to win an NBA championship this year, but they're really not. If Miami were to win a championship this year, it would fall under the category of the Spurs 2014 championship, the Pistons 2004 championship, or the Bad Boy Pistons back in the day in the 80s and 90s when they won. It's a kind of game. It's the kind of team that was a championship that doesn't have a superstar caliber player, doesn't have a top 5, top 10 player in the NBA, which Jimmy Butler is not. Okay, don't even come at me with that bullshit. Okay, all right, stop. There's no way. And that's sort of my logic. That's my logic against the Miami Heat this year. That's why I think the Miami Heat are really they're a pretender. They're a team that sure is doing great in the regular season, but they will not win a championship. They will not. They would bet the mortgage on it. The Miami Heat will not win the championship this year. And, you look, for anyone out there who really does think they will win, I ask you to please look back through NBA history. Look back at the best player on the championship winning teams. Look back at the best players. Go back to the 1980s, okay? The best players on championship winning teams, other than the 3 years I mentioned, when it was the Spurs in 2014, the Pistons in 2004, and the Bad Boy Pistons in 89 and 90, the last 40, 50 years, man, like the best players, or last 40, since the 80s, the best players on championship winning teams have been the likes of Magic Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Moses Malone, Michael Jordan, Hakeem Olajuwon, Shaq, Kobe, Tim Duncan. More recently, LeBron James, Stephen Curry, Kevin Durant, Giannis Antetokounmpo. Okay, Jimmy Butler is not that caliber of player. He is not at all. Definitely not. Okay, like those are the kinds of players it takes. Because we get to this point in the year and we're like, all right, there's a bunch of teams now that might have a chance of winning it, but who's the best player on that team? The thing with basketball is the team that wins it all at the end of the year, they have a best player who will go down as one of the greatest basketball players of all time, who's a top 20, top 30, top 40 kind of player of all time. It's been proven time and time again. There's a few exceptions to that, but the Miami Heat just don't have that guy. Let's move on to the Western Conference right now, okay? Let's run through the West real quick, because the West, it's so difficult to predict the West because there's a lot of injuries here and there's a lot of just kind of young teams that I don't really trust that much, and then there's the Utah Jazz, who I just never trust ever because it's the Utah Jazz. I've made my mistakes, or I guess I used to trust the Jazz back in the day, but now for the number one contender in the Western Conference, and I think this team really should cakewalk through the West, the Phoenix Suns. The Phoenix Suns have no business not making it to the finals. If the Suns don't make the finals, something bad, Chris Paul probably got hurt, Devin Booker got hurt, DeAndre Ayton got hurt. One of those three guys, because those three guys healthy right now. I'm looking through the Western Conference, pretty much every single team, other than Minnesota and Utah, that are in the West, have injuries. Memphis is without John Morant right now, okay? I'm just going to come back. Golden State doesn't have Steph Curry. The Dallas Mavericks, okay, do they have any big notable injuries right now? They must. I don't know. If not, it's the Mavericks, okay? Do you really think Mavericks can stand up to the Phoenix Suns? I love me some Luka Doncic. I'm going to talk about it a bit later, but no. Denver Nuggets won't have Jamal Murray. If Jamal Murray was there for the Nuggets, and Michael Porter Jr. was there, Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic could make a run this year at an NBA Finals. They could, because the way the Jokic has been playing. The Utah Jazz are the Utah Jazz. Don't trust them. Don't ever trust them. The Minnesota Timberwolves are the Timberwolves, and they're 7th. Like, they don't really have a chance against Phoenix. The Clippers don't have Kawhi Leonard. And even with Kawhi Leonard against the Clippers, like, what do you think they're going to do? Nothing, right? They're not going anywhere. It's the fucking Clippers, all right? So Phoenix right now for the Western Conference, this is the year. This is the year for Chris Paul. If I'm CP3, I'm sitting down right now and I'm looking at the teams I have to go through to get to the NBA Finals, to get back to my second NBA Finals in back-to-back years. Chris Paul should be salivating at this opportunity because he will never have a chance like this one. 2022 is the best chance Chris Paul has of winning an NBA championship. It is, and it's just because the lack of competition in the Western Conference right now. He was blessed. That Stephen Curry injury blessed Chris Paul, bro, because Golden State has beaten CP3 a few too many times back in the Clippers, back when he was in Houston. Golden State has had Chris Paul's number, and it's been Stephen Curry who's had CP3's number, and Steph Curry goes down. Chris Paul, this is your chance. This is it. If you can't win a championship this year, bro, like, I'm sorry. You're going to be another one of those guys who just never won a championship, which is tough. But this is the year I'm looking at Chris Paul. But anyway, yeah, Phoenix is the number one contender out of the Western Conference. They're the only team out of the West that I can see winning a championship. They really are. There's 4 teams in the whole league I can see winning an NBA championship. The Phoenix Suns, the Milwaukee Bucks, the Philadelphia 76ers, and the Brooklyn Nets. But that's an asterisk because the Brooklyn Nets are shit, except for they have Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. I think that's very fair to say that if you have those two guys, you have a chance at a chip. Everyone else, I don't see it. Memphis Grizzlies, they're like, I would love to see it happen. I'm going to cheer for Memphis and Denver. Those are my 2 teams in the Western Conference. Once the Spurs go out, I would love to see Memphis win an NBA championship this year. That'd be insane to see John Moran do that shit. I would love that. But they're not. They're too young. They're too inexperienced. I don't trust John Morant. They haven't gone through playoff heartbreak. You know, they lost last year in the playoffs in 5 games, a series that no one gave them a chance to win. You know, they were lucky to even be in the playoffs. They knocked out the Golden State Warriors out of the playoffs. Okay. So, I mean, Phoenix is really the only team out of the West I can see winning it. So my first contender out of the West is the Phoenix Suns. My second, the team I believe in the second most would be the Memphis Grizzlies right now. Third, this might be a bit controversial. Third, I'm going to go with the Dallas Mavericks, okay? Because Luka Doncic right now has been heating up. And if you ask anybody who watched the Luka Doncic series against the Clippers the last 2 years, they'll tell you, bro, Luka, like, there's no real words for me to put it. Like, he leaves me speechless. His talent leaves me fucking speechless. He's incredible. This man is insane. Clutch as fuck. And like, he dropped 50 last year in the playoffs, I think, or like in game 7 or some shit against the Clippers. 40 or 50. I'm speechless. Luka Doncic is that guy, and he can get the Mavericks to a lot of great places. They just got to get him the right pieces around him. And if Spencer Dinwiddie can come up and hit some big shots for the Dallas Mavericks, I mean, Dallas is going to be scary. So my top team is Phoenix. Number 2 is Memphis. Number 3, I'm going to go with the Dallas Mavericks. And number 4, like, the 4 spot is tough because Golden State, I would love to say Golden State, but they don't have Steph Curry. And I'm sorry, I just don't trust Jordan Poole, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green. And if it's between Golden State and Denver for me. And if it's who I think will win a 7-game series, the Warriors, the Denver Nuggets, it's tough. Fuck it. I would say Golden State would win that series. Fair enough. I think Golden State would beat Denver in a 7-game series. So they're my 4 seed in the West. They're the 4th best team in the West, I guess, to come out of the Western Conference. Everyone else, Denver, Utah, Minnesota, Clippers, they're done. They really are. Anyway, if y'all can't tell, I'm tired as shit right now. I really, like, I'm sorry. I am. I'm quite knackered, as they say in England. Yeah, that's it. That's it from episode 17 of the OffTheDome podcast. If you watched it all the way through, if you're still watching it right now, I appreciate you a lot. I genuinely do. And thank you very much for everything, for your time and attention. Love that very much. But yeah, that's it. March Madness, incredible. I think next week I'll release a podcast recapping March Madness because it has been fantastic. And I made 8 brackets. One of them was in the top 1% in America at one point in the Elite 8. Because I had, like, my whole Elite 8 was still in there for a long time. And then I had Duke and Villanova, though, in the finals, and they both lost in the Final Four, which is tough. I had Villanova beating Duke in the Final Four, which is tough, or no, beating Duke in the national championship game, which is tough, but I'm excited. Like, as of recording this right now, the national championship game has not happened yet, which I can't wait to watch. North Carolina, I gotta cheer for North Carolina, man. I predicted them to go pretty far in the tournament, too. I really did, but not this far. Anyway, that's it. It's whatever. Living good, or feeling good, living better. Drake once said that. Thank you very much for listening. Peace out, y'all.